And we're live.
And we're live. Excellent. Okay, so Tim is setting up some things for us before we get to our greenhouse tour that we're going to be doing today. As you can see, I'm surrounded by some absolutely gorgeous plants from a number of different genera, and Tim's grabbing us some carnivorous plants to look at too. So we'll be talking about that in a little bit. But we wanted to start a little early just so that we can make sure that all of our audience members can tune in and know that they're actually on our live broadcast as we're doing it. So I had a great thing that we can talk about too is that if you have any questions, please chime in the comments. Jenna is behind the camera. She's ready to chime in with those questions. And of course, our horticulturalist Tim is going to do his best to answer. I'm going to leave it to the expert, of course. But it is a glorious day over here at Lyon Arboretum. We have a summer camp going on as well. So we do have 10 little kids on campus, and Tim is ready for us. I'm going to hand you your mic.
All right, thank you very much.
Is it 10 o'clock?
It is.
Okay, great. We can go ahead and get started. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to Lyon Arboretum's Facebook Live. I'm Hadley Anderson. I am the education specialist, and with me today is Tim Kroessig. He is our horticulturalist here at Lyon Arboretum.
Hello, everybody out there in the virtual Facebook world. Glad you could join us today in the Lyon Arboretum main greenhouse.
Ooh.
There's the mist system going off right there.
It's wet and wild out here.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So Tim, you're going to take us on a tour of the greenhouse and see some of the gorgeous plants we have growing here.
Yeah. So in addition to our living collections on the grounds, we have thousands of plants that we maintain here in several of our growing areas in the greenhouses that, represent hundreds of different species from all over the world. And some of these we propagate for our sales that you're probably aware of and fond of, I hope, as well as to supplement our living collections on the grounds. And some of these are long-term living collections that we maintain in the greenhouse because of their conservation importance, maybe for researchers, or as, educational tools as well, because that is a big component of our mission here at Lyon, of course.
Yeah, we definitely have a couple of these plants down in our education department to help us educate the children.
Yeah, so today we'll just be going through the greenhouse, and I'll be giving you a little bit of a tour of some of my favorite plants, and I'm going to highlight a few things that are also in flower right now, some beautiful blossoms. And then we'll finish off with talking a little bit about my favorite group, or one of my favorite groups of plants. I can't pick one, but carnivorous plants. That's a fascinating world of carnivorous.
Pretty great group to talk about too.
Yeah.
So feel free to chime in with your questions as we're going through. We'll probably be doing this for about 10 minutes or so. So please feel free. Don't be shy.
Send them in.
Yes, send them in soon. All right, Tim, what are we looking at first?
So we have some beautiful Anthurium clarinervum here. And these are quite lovely plants from Central America. Here you can see a couple of the flower stalks. This one is just starting, and this one is now on its way to setting fruit. So anthuriums in general have a very interesting flower form that's not like your typical flower, but it's what's called a spadex. And so you have male and female flowers along this structure here, and when they get pollinated, then they start to set fruit, like this slightly bigger plant right here. So those are the green fruits that are developing. Eventually I'll collect those, sow the seeds, and propagate them for eventual sale. These are very slow growing plants, but they're absolutely beautiful. It is a wild species. These are from Mexico. And so this is an example of a living collection that we maintain in the greenhouse, but don't necessarily have them growing out in the wild. So for example, this plant, believe it or not, appears to be 13 years old. So very slow growing, but absolutely beautiful. I have seedlings on the way, and hopefully I can get them out to you houseplant enthusiasts out there.
That plant doesn't even look real. Like the way that the leaves are shaped and the way that they're facing and everything like that, it looks like something out of somebody else's imagination.
Yeah, but we have a lot of anthuriums in our collection, many out on the grounds too. So if you love anthuriums, come and check it out and come tour our collections via registration system.
Where do we have some of those anthuriums on our grounds? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, let's see. Some of them are down in Fern Valley. We have an aroid valley, and because anthuriums are aroids, you'll find some of the anthuriums in aroid valley as well. But they're kind of here and there throughout our collection at Lion. They prefer shadier, kind of more moist habitat, so you aren't going to find them in the really exposed areas, but generally in the understory, under some of our tree plantings and such.
Makes sense for an area called Fern Valley, right?
Exactly, yeah.
What's next?
All right, so moving on over here, this is our hibiscus collection. We have many different types of hibiscus. These are relics from my predecessor, Liz Hupman, and her work with Hawaiian hibiscus. And so this here is a Kokio ula, but this one is actually an orange one. Hibiscus Kokio St. Johnianus, or St. John's hibiscus, is this particular one. And it has a beautiful orange blossom. It doesn't really fill out very much. It's kind of a lanky hibiscus, but a really cool endemic species found nowhere else in the world. Only here in Hawaii, actually endemic to the island of Kauai, this particular subspecies. So a wonderful blossom. I always enjoy these when they come into flower. Just one of our many types of native hibiscus here in Hawaii. So moving on to the Thunbergia Myosorensis here. We have some Indian clock vine. And you may recognize these from down near our visitor center. We have an arbor down there that used to house a very large vine that often was full of flowers like this. These are bird-pollinated flowers in their natural habitat. I believe in Sri Lanka and India, they're pollinated by sunbirds. And you could kind of see if you were a bird coming in here drinking nectar, the good parts of the flower are right on top there. And so they would get a little pollen deposited on their head, move on to the next flower, and pollinate that. But these, from what I know, are sterile. I've never seen seed set on these, but it's a really nice, vigorous vine that puts out these beautiful pendant inflorescences or clusters of flowers. So this is one that I really enjoy. Again, Indian clock vine, or Thunbergia myosorensis. All right.
We recently redid some of the Memorial Garden too, so
right.
The clock vine isn't as prolific as it once was, but it's a wonderful place to come and see some of the changes that have happened here at Lion since we've been closed.
Right. It's still a work in progress, but the vine that we cut back to rebuild the trellis is now coming back as well.
Oh, yeah.
So before long, it'll be nice and full and flowering again.
Great.
All right. So moving on to some of the oddities in the greenhouse here. We have an Amorphophallus bulbifer.
Oh, it's
and
gorgeous.
You may be familiar with the genus Amorphophallus because of its relative, also in that group, Amorphophallus titanum, or the Titan arum, or Titan corpse flower, which you've probably heard about its stinky reputation in the news. Foster Botanical Gardens, as well as here at Lion Arboretum, have specimens that have flowered. And believe it or not, that particular species, Amorphophallus titanum, has the largest unbranched inflorescence in the world.
Oh my gosh.
So an inflorescence is a group of flowers, and it's not branched. And so, believe it or not, that massive flower that comes up for the Amorphophallus titanum is the largest of its type in the world. And so with most of these, this particular species can have vegetative growth and a flower at the same time, but many of them, the vegetative growth or the leaves will die back and the flower will emerge out of the soil. So they have a very interesting life cycle that goes in these seasonal changes, and a lot of times you'll just see a flower like this sticking out of the ground. Pretty bizarre.
Might smell something rotten.
Might smell something rotten, and the reason for that is they're attracting their pollinators, which are flies. So kind of a cool group. We have a number of species here in the greenhouse, as well as out on the grounds. And if you catch them at the right time, you'll be able to either see the leaves flushing or the wonderful and interesting flowers
We were
here.
able to see some of these on the edge of our ethnobotanical garden too, going up the hill around the Great Lawn as well. And it was one of those things where we just smelled it a little bit, and we were just like, wait a second. Is this one of those flowers? And it was. It was totally one of the Amorphophallus.
Stinky, but good.
Stinky, but delicious. Well,
yeah.
To bugs.
So here we have an interesting Ohia lehua specimen in the greenhouse. It's actually rooted into the bench, so it's a very old plant. But what we use it for is a stock plant. So you can see a bundle up there. We've talked about it in the past on social media. But air layering is a propagation technique that we utilize to clone plants and to skip the immature or juvenile stage. So we can get them to flower sooner, we get them to grow vigorously. And so believe it or not, this plant right here, another Ohia lehua, or Metrosideros polymorpha, an endemic Hawaiian forest tree found nowhere else in the world. This big plant in a 2-gallon pot is less than a year old from air layer. So normally from seed, a plant this size, I would say would probably take 5 years to grow this big. They're very slow growing. And the great thing about air layers is this is a mature plant. Because it came from a mature plant, as soon as we root it and we establish it, it has the ability to flower because it skipped that juvenile stage. So I'm really looking to air layer a lot of our Ohia here to get these plants out into the urban landscape. And to you folks out there that are interested in purchasing them, using them for lay, beautiful trees, and they definitely need to be grown and perpetuated, especially in this time where they're threatened by rapid Ohia death, which is a fungal disease.
Over at Education, we started some from seeds, actually back when I started in December, and I can tell you that the largest plant is only about that big. It's not very big at all.
Wow.
And that's from seeds. So that one was, less than a year old. Mine's already 6 months, 7 months old, and
air layer wins.
Air layer wins that one.
Yeah.
I can see some roots on this one too already.
Oh yeah? Huh.
I think so. Is that
Yeah,
what I'm
maybe
seeing?
roots starting. It could be some moss too, but it takes about a month for the air layers, maybe 2 months for the air layers to form roots. Then we can sever them from the mother plant. We can pot them up, baby them for a little while until they get established. And then they're their own plant, a clone of the mother, and therefore the flower color, which is really cool, is retained. So if I take air layers from a yellow flowered Ohia mamo, those clones of it are going to have yellow flowers as well. So it's a great way to perpetuate really interesting characteristics through vegetative propagation.
Oh,
so
cool.
Just one of the many methods that we use up here at Lion to grow and propagate our plants. Another group that we do through vegetative propagation is our begonias. We have a very diverse and beautiful begonia collection dating back to actually before I was born. So that's a pretty neat thing about this collection that we manage here is many of these plants date back to the 1960s, 70s, and even before that for some of these species. But this particular cultivar is Begonia Little Brother Montgomery. And here you can see the beautiful flowers here. And so very attractive foliage plant. It looks really nice if you backlight it. And these propagate very easily from stem or leaf cuttings. So these are often a popular plant that we sell at our sales. I do have a large stock in our greenhouse right now. So if you're interested in purchasing begonias, we can talk about that before we wrap up this Facebook Live session.
Will you show us the backlighting one more time, please?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Check that out.
Gorgeous.
Wow.
So this is like a maple leaf type begonia. And this is a fibrous rooted one. There's different types of begonias, but this is definitely one of my favorites. And this succession dates back to 1996. So we've perpetuated it through cuttings since then. This one is a cultivar called Irene Noose. And this is more of the cane type begonia. Angel wing is another name for this particular leaf type. And here you can see a few of the flowers just starting to open. And this succession dates back to before I was born, 1983.
Ooh.
So pretty cool to perpetuate these really interesting cultivars of things that we've been growing here at Lion for decades. So Beautiful plants. They make great indoor plants. They like kind of sheltered, humid conditions, not too windy, not too sunny. But if you can get just the right conditions, they're fun and they're beautiful. So lots of begonias.
Yeah.
Now let's move on. Quick little spotlight for the Aescananthus here. This is a wonderful vining plant that we have in these hanging baskets here. It's typically epiphytic, or it grows on other plants in its wild habitat. But these are naturally a wild species. It's Aescananthus speciosus, and again, it's evolved for bird pollination. You can kind of see the shape of the flower is curved, just like the beak of a sunbird would be able to fit down in there. These are the anthers, which carry the pollen up there. And so we got pollination as a bird moves from one flower to another.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Now, your favorite.
Yes.
Well, not that you can choose a favorite, but
Right. But
one
some
your
of my
families.
favorite plants are the carnivorous plants. And so, believe it or not, everybody knows of the Venus flytrap, right? Is that the only carnivorous plant? Heck no. Believe it or not, there's over 700 species of carnivorous plant that occur in the world on every continent except for Antarctica. And they range from being terrestrial, epiphytic, there are even some that are aquatic. But all of them are similar in the fact that they attract prey, they capture prey, and they derive benefit from the nutrients of that prey. If they don't meet those 3 different criteria, they're not truly carnivorous. So all of these guys here from the sundews, like these Drosera capensis from the Cape of Africa, South Africa. Beautiful dew on those leaves. You can see it sticky. And so that's why they're called sundews. Another popular group that does really well up here at Lyon because its natural habitat is similar to what we have up here is the Nepenthes, or tropical pitcher plant. And these are great because they have these vase-like pitchers, and they actually secrete a little bit of nectar on the rim of these pitchers. The rim is called the peristome, which attracts insects, lizards, frogs, you name it, to come and drink from the pitcher. And it's slippery, so they slip down, and you can kind of see that there's water and juices in the bottom. These pitchers actually have glands at the base of the pitcher that absorb nutrients as this prey is broken down in this watery solution of digestive juices. It's kind of like our own gut in that it has microorganisms as well as natural juices that the plants produce to help break down their prey. So these are really cool, fascinating plants that we're growing a lot more of these days.
Have you seen anything that you didn't expect in being digested in a pitcher plant?
We get geckos every now and then. Yeah.
You think they'd be able to crawl out pretty easily, but
No, it's pretty slippery on the inside. So we got cockroaches, geckos, ants, crane flies, you name it, all sorts of different play. Basically, they're indiscriminate. And so they'll eat whatever they can catch. And we have an open environment here, so they catch a lot of their own prey. We do have a native species of carnivorous plant. This is the Mikinalo right here. It's a sundew. Again, Drosera anglica. And this guy only occurs up in the Alakai swamp. Here in Hawaii, I should say. It only occurs in the Alakai swamp at about 2,000 feet elevation. This species is found elsewhere in the world. It is native to California and Alaska. But this population here in Hawaii is unique in that it's the only subtropical population of Drosera anglica. And so we call this an indigenous species because, yes, it is native to Hawaii, but it's also native to elsewhere in the world. So this is one we're looking to cultivate and select plants that do better in lower elevation habitat. And so we'll wrap it up real quick here, but one last carnivorous plant, because these are all in bloom and quite beautiful, are the butterworts or Pinguicula. And these may not strike you as a carnivorous plant when you first look at them, but there are a lot of very small, fine hairs on the leaf surface that are similar to the Drosera's that will actually catch tiny little insects, gnats, white flies, and so they're kind of like the living sticky cards that we use in the greenhouse to track pest populations. Here's a beautiful flower. These are hummingbird pollinated, and so if we want them to set seed, we have to pollinate these flowers. And so I have a handful of plants here, pretty basic. Just put a toothpick in there, pick up a little bit of pollen, and transfer it to the stigma of another flower, and you get seeds. These also work via division or leaf cuttings. And so these are many of the plants that we're developing for future plant sales as well as for our living collections. And so for right now, we aren't having plants for sale in front of our visitor center, but if you're interested in purchasing plants, do give me a call at 988-0472. We can talk about what I have in inventory depending on what it is. I can set up an order ahead of time. You can come and pick it up if you register as a guest, or I can work on propagating if you have specific requests for future purchases.
Excellent. We do have slots available for the weekdays for visiting Lion Arboretum 2. You can make reservations I find the link on our website. It's through Eventbrite. And as Tim was saying, if you're interested in any of the stock that we do have, Tim is willing to talk with you about that, and we'll put the phone number again in the comment section of this video.
And stay tuned for our fall plant sale. I'm not sure exactly what shape or form it's going to take, but we'll definitely be selling plants in the fall, whether it's online through Facebook Marketplace or Etsy, or an in-person event where we practice social distancing and limiting the number of people. Keep tuned to our social media for updates on future Lion plant sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, thank you so much. This was really illuminating, and we saw some really interesting plants here today. And of course, I'm totally fascinated by the carnivorous plants too. So
awesome. You caught the bug.
Yes,
glad to hear.
Yes. I was just like, ooh, sticky sundews. Ooh. Awesome. So we'll see you guys next week. The week after that, we're probably going to take a break from our Facebook Live because it is very hard to do a Facebook Live while we have campers here. But we'll hopefully see you then. So until then,
thanks
aloha.
for tuning in.